Do you remember Dead Man Wonderland? It was one of those shows that was on Netflix like a long time ago, but then when you wanted to randomly watch it again, you couldn't find it because it wasn't there anymore. For me, it was one of the first anime I ever watched on Netflix. And that's just because that was the only service I knew where I could watch anime without seeing literal porn on the side of the screen. Wait, hold up one second. And there we go. Because I've been watching, frankly, an unhealthy amount of anime this year, I decided to take a look back at some of the old shows I used to watch back in the day. And that's how we ended up here. Dead Man Wonderland is a horror show, I guess. Does horror mean scary or gory? Because this show isn't scary, like, at all. It's just extremely violent. Like, unnecessarily violent. Like, to the point where I was kind of turned off by the show. Not too turned off to not watch it, but just enough to be like, this is kind of overkill. Literally. Also, rewatching a show you have vague memories of seeing is such a weird thing. Because there's just times where I'm watching and I'm like, I could have swore the guy had an eye patch. Oh wait, he does have an eye patch. What happened to him? Oh. Or have a moment like, why was he so mean to her? That felt unnecessary. Oh, okay, that makes more sense. Anyways, this show is about a kid named Ganta who was framed for the murder of his entire classroom by the figurehead of the Dead Man Wonderland prison. Okay, hold up. Before I continue, I just want to preface, this kid is 14. Now, I want you to look at this crime scene and tell me how any investigator could look at this scene and say, a 14-year-old kid did this. Bro, it looks like a fucking bomb blew up in the classroom, and all it took to convince the public was a CGI video of him saying, yeah, he did it. Like, they never explained how he would have even done it. I know this is just an anime and I'm reading too far into it, but like, people think. Niggas' heads were cut off, and there was debris everywhere with no gunpowder. It's just a plot hole the size of Lena the Plug after Jason Love. Please tell me this joke is still relevant by the time I upload this. Back to the synopsis. Dead Man Wonderland is a prison where the prisoners play death games for the general public's amusement. Another plot hole found! Real people die in front of children and everyone, but people go, man, the special effects are great this year. But to be fair, it could be that thing where you don't expect it to happen in broad daylight, so they think, there's no way this is real. Which to me kind of makes sense, but at the same time, how good is the CGI in this world? Like, in broad daylight, someone's head gets chopped off, arms get flung into the crowd, blood spraying, and no one's like, man, that's expert level special effects. This shit is crazy to me. Anyways, Ganta learns throughout the story that he has something called a branch of sin. That makes him a dead man. And dead men have to fight each other to basically the death for billionaires. It's kind of like Squid Game. Sorry if I ruined that for anybody. And to avoid getting tortured by this psycho. That's basically the whole anime, because the series never got a second season, and it ended before you really know what happens, but the manga does continue, so that's something at least. Okay, so this is going to sound kind of random, but just give me a second to bring it all around. So when I decided to make videos on YouTube, the first video I made was animes that didn't get another season, and of course, this show was the very first one at the top of the list. So I did some research. And to be honest, it's really hard to find information about shows because I would assume most of the actually helpful articles are in Japanese. Anyways, the only answer I could find for why Dead Man didn't get another season was because it strayed too far away from the manga. So when it came to decide how they wanted the second season to go, the writers didn't have anything to go off of. Also, I read that the manga readers really didn't like that the adaptation was so far away from the original material, which is understandable. That's why people didn't like the second season of Promised Neverland. And honestly, a lot of people didn't even finish it. So all that information got me extremely curious to what the differences between the anime and the manga were. So I did what any sane person would do. I read the entire manga in a day. And you know what? There were two things that surprised me while I was reading the manga. The first one was, it was only 58 chapters, so it was a short read, relatively, comparatively to like all these other mangas out there. And the second thing that surprised me was that all my information I found was wrong. Yeah, the entire first season is damn near an exact remake of the manga. Well, at least to like 19 to 20 chapters. The literal only difference in the entire anime versus the manga is this girl. And as I'm writing the script, I don't even know her name. She is not that important to the story, at least within the bounds of the first season. And so unless the manga readers were that pissed that this girl wasn't in the show, or the writers were that pressed about it, then it's looking like some articles and Redditors have no clue what the hell they're talking about. So the only answer I could really assume why they didn't get a second season was because it didn't do that well in Japan or something. But to actually get into how I like the show, to make it simple, it's alright. I gave it like a 5 before I read the manga because I thought the story had to be rushed in some way. But when I read the manga and found out, no, that's just how the story was written, I was like, oh yeah, that's definitely a 5. The story seems rushed, and the way characters get out of certain circumstances just doesn't feel rewarding. Like our main character Ganta, he's the classic wuss bitch boy character. He's constantly getting saved by Shiro, but anytime he doesn't get saved, he gets saved by the plot. Now, I have seen all of Naruto, and I'm caught up to One Piece. So I know a character being saved by plot. But my boy Gonta will be getting beat up by the strongest characters in the world, and then somehow one-shot them every time. Also, before I forget, I just want to shout out the highlight of the show, She-Ra. She is by far the best character. Kind of ditzy, but probably the strongest person in the show kind of thing. But she is utterly adorable. Like, look at her. She's just so cute. Oh man, I just hit a high note. Now back to Slander. This show is not good, but it isn't bad either. I think it's smack dab in the middle, and that's why I gave it a 5. I truly believe if it would have continued to follow the manga, this show would still be brought up today as one of the best shows of the early 2010s. But unfortunately, we did not. So we're left with a shell of a show that didn't even get to the best parts of the story. Also, just at the end here, I just wanted to say, I'm just talking about the anime. The anime is a 5. The manga is probably more like an 8. But yeah. This show is a really interesting case because it had all the inner workings of a show from the 2010s that would blow up, but it just didn't. Like, I knew people that liked it, but the only reason I could find was that it didn't sell enough. It was super violent, gory, and edgy, which is the exact thing that some shows following gained their traction from. Tell me if this sounds familiar. Blood-type powers and people with special weapons just to fight the people with blood-like powers. I mean, you can't say you don't see at least some kind of resemblance in it. Also, if you don't know what show I'm referencing / showing you right now, it's Tokyo Ghoul. All I gotta say to wrap this video up is Deadman Wonderland is a story that was cut too short just because it didn't have a chance to reach its peak. But it did seem to show that it was possible to have an extremely gory and over-the-top violent story, while also telling an angsty love story. Oh, Gonta's voice in the dub is just horrible. Here's a quick clip.
I wanna live! I wanna live!
Stole Robin's whole flow. Also, the anime ended on chapter 21 of the manga, so if you're interested in completing the story, just start on chapter 22. I know I've probably done like 3 outros by now, but just a PS at the end of the video. So, I found out Deadman Wonderland wasn't actually taken off Netflix. It's just been put behind a region lock. In case you've never heard of this before, Netflix and other streaming services sometimes lock shows behind specific region barriers, such as the case with Deadman Wonderland. The regions you're able to watch Deadman are in India, Malaysia, Singapore, Hong Kong, South Korea, and Thailand. So if you don't live in those regions, you're pretty much shit out of luck. Unless you have ExpressVPN. Nah, I'm just kidding. But just imagine you supported me enough to get a sponsorship with ExpressVPN, the best VPN service on the market. Unless someone gave me any amount of money to say otherwise. Well, if you want to see me do expert level transitions into ad reads, give me some support by subscribing or leaving a like, or commenting about how much you hate the Lakers. Anyways, I'm tired and of African descent. Good night.